All right, to start this off, if you would state your name and what you're running for.
My name is William Randall Barker, named after my uncle William C. Barker. I'm running for the office of Perry County Sheriff, seeking my 9th term in that office.
Okay. What are your motivations for continuing the office of sheriff?
Well, I've kind of narrowed it down, and I
Okay.
feel that if my health is still good and I feel as though I can contribute, I'm going to continue seeking the career path that I started clear back to the days I was in high school.
Okay. What are some misunderstandings that the public may have incorrect about the sheriff's department? Because I'm sure you've heard many.
Oh, I have over the years, and first of all, I'd like to correct you.
Sure.
It's not a department, it's an office. And
Okay.
the difference in that is, and I have to educate people to this, an office is one runs for and is elected by the people of the community. A department is when you're appointed to a position, such as a police chief or whatever that position might be. So there's no electorate process to work for a department, but there is to work for an office, to run an office.
Okay.
So that's one big misunderstanding a lot of times people have about the sheriff's office. But to answer that question, that office has basically 3 prongs to it. I have some duties that I have to perform by statute. And the first and the top priority duty for that office is to service the courts of Perry County. We have 3 that we're directly responsible for. We have municipal court there by Judge Wilson. We have juvenile court with Judge Cooper Ryder, and of course common pleas court with Judge Boyer. And I have a ministerial duty to each of those courts to handle the processes from those courts. Now those are subpoenas, those are summonses, those are jury notices, those are warrants, those are orders to convey, orders to remove, all dealing with the service of paperwork and transporting and moving people to and from either the jail or from prison, or going and picking up people that have to testify in court or be on jury duty. And that's my first and most prioritized job for the office of sheriff. The second priority job that I have is the management or overseeing of the jail facility. I have quite an obligation there to provide a jail that meets the minimum standards in Ohio that require the jails to have certain services available for people who are incarcerated, like bed space, like recreational time, like outdoor recreation, like visitation rights, like space available for their sleeping quarters, a safe environment, and other services that the jail provides for them, such as like a library or places where they can go read, or where they can meet with a pastor, or where they can get dental work or whatever medical need that person may have. I serve on the board at the Southeastern Ohio Regional Jail. I'm the only board member left there that was there when that jail was opened and started in 1996, I believe. Everybody else has either come and passed away, or moved on to another, or never got reappointed to those positions they held as elected officials. We're made up of auditors, of commissioners, of sheriffs that sit on that board, and there's 12 of us down there that work with the warden we have hired there. So that is one of my biggest liabilities there as sheriff, making sure that that facility is operated and the standards for Ohio are met right there. In fact, I just reviewed the jail report that was mailed to me just last week. It was, and our jail once again has made the standards and met all the requirements that are necessary to run a full service jail and be compliant with the rules set down by the Ohio Bureau of Adult Detention. That's very important. That's extremely important for the sheriff to have a facility like that that meets those standards. I would be placing an inmate in a position where it didn't meet those standards and would be subjecting our county to a huge liability. And that's not what I'm about. I want to make sure that we have a good facility there, that it's run properly. The third prong of that job then comes to law enforcement, and it is the least of those 3 priorities. And one might say, well, why is law enforcement is so far down on the list? Well, those 3 things, court couldn't function without the sheriff taking care of his duties. We wouldn't have inmates in jail to bring to court, And first and last, we got to catch them to start with, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the enforcement part of that plays a significant role in the duties of a sheriff right there. So that's kind of the misconception a lot of people have as far as myself, my job as sheriff, what I oversee, what I'm responsible to manage, and where I direct our priorities to. That sum that up?
I like that answer. That's a good answer. I've read
That's the correct
quite a bit
answer.
about what sheriff's duties are,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of like the word department versus office. It's difficult to talk about that and be entirely accurate because, like, sheriff is one thing, but then the department, the deputies, is plays those roles that you would then manage. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's a good answer. Yeah, because what's the point of policing if on the back end they're just walking outside the jail or not being prosecuted or whatnot? So yeah, that's a good answer.
Well, I didn't say wasn't being prosecuted or walked out to jail. You got the thing that people, a lot of times, and you mentioned I get criticized a lot of times or sometimes about people getting released. That's not in my lane.
Right.
Our job is to take the complaint from a citizen, investigate it. If we find a suspect and we have enough evidence to present a case to the prosecutor's office and charge that person, and then our last goal was to testify in court. Somewhere in between there, those people have certain rights,
Mm-hmm.
certain bonds, certain chances to be released from jail for whatever reason it might be. But that's not within the control of the sheriff's office. And a lot of people think, well, we catch them when we turn them loose. We're going to let them out the next day. Believe me, that's not our decision.
Yeah.
And if people would understand that, and I think most people get that, they understand that. But you get a few of the critics that think, well, you arrest them today and they're out tonight. Well, that's true.
Yeah.
It happens.
In some circumstances, yeah.
It very well happens, and they get frustrated with that. And believe me, I understand that frustration because I receive that frustration from people. Why is this guy back out here? Why is this pedophile back out here living in this neighborhood right here next to my house or next to this area right here? And they get so wound up about that. But in that, if they feel that frustration, please call. Please call and ask and discuss that with us. We're happy to try and answer those questions when people get released for reasons that's out of our control. And I would appreciate that and be very respectful and try to answer those people's questions.
Right.
Should that happen.
I like what you're alluding to right now, but you're not saying it because it sounds probably obvious to you or even to me. But if someone is concerned about someone in their neighborhood or whatever the situation is, and I call you, the reason behind that call is to probably help provide some details on some of the procedures that would allow said person in public, for example, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because those the reasons they're released from jail or arrested and released that day are things that's not in our control.
Mm-hmm.
But I can find out that answer why.
Right.
I can find out why the courts or why the prosecutor's office did those things they did. And it's usually typically a procedural thing. It's not that they're in error. It's that people don't understand how the system works and they're frustrated with that. You know, we've had cases that's taken us 6 months to a year to get in front of a judge, get into a trial like that. And here all along, you got people sitting back waiting for this to happen. And it's not anything within my control.
Yeah.
But I'll be very happy to address that with people.
Yeah. Well, it's not a TV show, so you can't wrap up somebody in 5 minutes. So
hey, we have, but not that often. No.
Right. No. Right. All right. One of the issues in Perry County are violent crimes. What are you able to do about this matter? Some people think these aren't getting enough attention. I don't have any specifics to give you, though.
I was going to ask you, I'll just ask you a question.
Sure.
To get me started. What is your definition of a violent crime? What do you mean by a violent crime?
Oh, my. When our previous administrator was alive, Tom Collins, he and I had gone back and forth on the definition of violent a few times, but violent crime to me would be, that's a tough one because there are so many different degrees of violent. So I would say if someone I guess violent at its most weakest level would be assault. You touch me, assault, right? But then I think where police or a sheriff would be involved would be, in my opinion, is if that assault were to continue or if someone needs to be hospitalized due to that assault or degree thereof. Does that make sense?
Well, it does, and I kind of see where you're coming from on that, because our definition of a violent crime typically falls within the element of causing serious physical harm to another or a threat of serious physical harm to another. Once there's that threat or once there's an actual assault against a person where there's injury involved and that person then needs to be hospitalized or going to a doctor, that kind of escalates the level of crime
Right.
or the charge that they're going to have against them. And of course, that can go anywhere from those elements there all the way to an aggravated homicide
Right.
as a violent crime. But a lot of times people have expectations that they're a victim of a violent crime, but as long as the elements are there,
Mm-hmm.
and the elements are there to substantiate that criminal charge, and we take great time to explain those to people so that you know what the elements are of a certain offense right here. And if that case rises to that level,
Mm-hmm.
and we have evidence to support that, that's the key, is having evidence to support that, either by a medical examination or a witness to that crime or an interview with that suspect, and of course the victim statement, and how we corroborate that case together and make those elements present for the prosecutor will determine what violent crime, if it constitutes a violent crime, will be the charge there. So we try to push our emphasis on making sure that we investigate the crimes to establish those elements,
Mm-hmm.
so that we can take a case to the prosecutor and say, look, Mr. Prosecutor, here's the elements of the facts, here's the facts of the case right here. Does it rise to the level of a felonious assault,
Right.
being a pretty serious felony crime right there, if you're using a weapon or whatever. So that would be my explanation to that question right there about serious crimes of violence.
Have you heard of these not being given enough attention, or is that just something that's in the ether?
I would say that that's probably something a victim, if there's victims out there that feel that way, need to probably contact us. Because here's what happens. When we take a report from a victim, we put our case together, we collect what evidence we have, whatever statements are there, we get our medical reports, we do whatever we can to interview the suspect, and we present that to the county prosecutor. And he has an obligation then to report back to us, A, if he's going to charge this person, or B, that there's not going to be any charges, or C, if you need to go do this or that, and then bring that back to me. A lot of times that's where those cases get hung up, is in that prosecutor review process right there, when he's directed us to go back out and follow this up and try to corroborate this victim's statement or this victim's complaint. Once that's completed, we go back out and track that information down, then we resubmit that to the prosecutor. So again, that takes up time.
Right.
And people get upset about it. I haven't heard back from the sheriff's office calls. All you got to do is call. We have answering machines at our office. We have cell phones. We carry 24 hours a day, 7. I got a 24/7 hour dispatch right there
Mm-hmm.
that you can leave a message with right there. And then we'll track that information down for you. And it's a pretty simple process. Either the facts are there or they're not, or we need to do more work.
Okay. Another issue is property crimes. They are especially difficult to deal with for the victims, as difficult as it may be. What can you do as sheriff on property crimes to help alleviate the stress for victims and the public? Stolen property, vandalism, that kind of thing.
Do you own a firearm?
Yes.
Do you know what brand name it is?
Taurus.
Do you know what model it is?
G3C.
Do you know the serial number on it?
Daggone you. No.
I caught you, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
And that's the answer to your question. Typically what happens in property crimes.
In my defense, can I say something? I have a photo of it.
Can I see the serial number on it?
Probably could, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Then that's good. That's what we're looking for right there.
Yeah.
I just took a gun back to a guy that was stolen over 12 years ago and handed it back to him in a box and told him before he opened the box, I'm not responsible for the condition of this firearm right now. And when he opened it up, it still looked like it was brand new, and he had a big smile on his face. But
Wow.
anyway, You know how we got that gun?
Uh-uh.
We had the serial number off of it. We had the serial number. We had it entered in leads, had a NIC number assigned to it, which is a nationwide check on that particular weapon if somebody comes across that, and it was found in the state of Colorado.
Wow.
I don't know how it got there yet.
Yeah.
I don't know that story. But that's how you find people's property like that. If we have the name, the brand of it, model number, a serial number, and in your defense, a photograph of it that we can put with our records, I have a much better chance then of finding or identifying that particular handgun or weapon, whatever you have stolen.
Right.
That applies to any type of personal property. Just like you said, you got photograph the inside of your house, your TVs,
Yes.
your things that's got serial numbers on that. At the fair, we've passed out a sheet there sometimes, and insurance companies provide these to people that have insurance as well. Here's a list. Write down the date you bought this, the price you paid for it, the brand name of it, the serial number off of it. Are we going to stop people from stealing? No. We're never going to stop that.
Yeah.
So to help us in that, the more descriptive information that we have on the personal properties that you have stolen, the better off we are, especially if you got cameras up there. But 9 times out of 10, the bad guy's smart enough to know, I'll wear a ski mask or a mask so they can't pick out my face. But we've had some crimes that we've solved off of photo recognition and gotten a name off of the system that we can use to help us identify who that suspect might be. So people, lock your homes. When you leave, lock the door.
Right.
Don't leave the keys in your four-wheeler, your side-by-side, or in your car, or don't leave the garage door up so people can drive by and see what you got inside there when you're not home.
Right.
Just some common sense crime prevention tips. I used to teach a block of crime prevention in the police academy when I taught in Zanesville. And, if we could deter, detect, delay, and deny a person, those were the 4 Ds of crime prevention. You can help us by doing those 4 simple things. Deny, delay, detect, and what was the 4th one I said?
I don't know. I was going to ask you about what do you mean by deny, though? What's that mean?
Well, that means to reinforce your house.
Oh, okay.
Let's
deny entry kind of thing. Deny access.
Deny access to that. Let's make better locks on our houses like that. Let's put a camera system inside of our house right there. Detect was the 3rd one. If you got cameras and stuff, use those.
And take photos of things. Take photos of your ATV. Take photos of whatever.
That's exactly right.
Especially if you have something that's not registered.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things are they're not so easily stolen. They're easier to hide once they're stolen. Recently, we have in Crooksville, there was a stolen skid steer.
Yep.
And
we've all looked for that skid steer, me included.
Yeah. It's difficult to track something that's by all means untrackable. Yeah. So yeah.
And the only other thing I would add to that is have good neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
When my neighborhood is somebody leaves out my neighborhood, somebody usually gives me a call. Hey, we're going to be gone for a while. Keep an eye on the place. Having good neighbors that will help you in the event that you're away from your home is a very, very valuable thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And would you have a tip on trying to have a good neighbor? What could one do to improve their neighbor or neighborhood?
Well, I've got this.
Because I can tell you what I've done.
My neighbor brings me a pie every now and
then. I'll accept that too,
And then I got one, he's, of course, is Brad Agristy, County Municipal Court Probation Officer, and his family there. And then another neighbor works for the county. So we just have a good relationship there.
Yeah.
We talk to one another, and that's what it's all about.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, go over, knock on the door, like, hey, my name is so-and-so. Hey, if you ever need anything, I'm over here. Extend a hand out, and then eventually that hand might come back to you one day, because you never know.
Crime prevention is not a hard thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
It just takes a little bit of time and effort for you to reach out to your neighbors like that and do that. To take time to write down the serial numbers of your stuff you have and photographs of them. Or, I have a security alarm system in my house, and not everybody can afford that, but they're not outrageous.
No, they're not.
For a couple $100 every 3 months, I like to have that.
Right.
I like to have that security and knowing that's there.
Yeah, I'm quite privileged in that part because I make decent money and I can afford a security system for each one of my properties, and they're convenient.
Vandalism, on the other hand, is a little different story. That's a hard one there to stop people from doing that. You usually get mailboxes vandalized, cars vandalized, something set somewhere.
Right.
Things like that, unless we have a camera system that's available out there to pick up maybe a picture of somebody or have a witness to it.
Right.
Yeah. That's crimes that are difficult. But I understand people want to turn that into insurance, so they need to report that and get a report number from us so they can turn it in and make a claim on that.
Right.
Yeah.
Illegal drugs have been a growing issue for decades, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better. Is policing illegal drugs ineffective? And what effect does policing drugs have? There's a second to that question. Have you attempted to or given thought to not policing drugs? Why or why not? So there's two separate questions there. I'll repeat the first one if you want me to.
Yeah, please.
Okay. I'll start from the beginning. Illegal drugs have been a growing issue for decades, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better. Is policing illegal drugs ineffective? And what effect does policing drugs have?
Well, obviously it's effective. All we have to do, and our goal is if we save one life, then it's effective. And if we can do that, I would say the answer to that question is yes, that it is effective. To say that it's ineffective would mean we'd never catch anybody. Well, that's not the case.
Right.
We're going to catch some people, but if we can save a life, that makes it worth it all right there.
Mm-hmm.
To answer that question right there. So yes, it's effective policing that. And that's the attitude our guys have up there. The guys working a special investigation unit, we have to have that approach to that, or we'd be delinquent in our duties that
Right.
protect you.
Right.
Part two of that question.
Okay. Have you attempted to or given thought to not policing drugs? Why or why not?
No, I've never given that a thought to
Okay.
not police drugs. No, that's part of our duties right there. Because when you talk about drugs, are you talking about?
I'm talking about like meth, cocaine, heroin.
All those illegal hard drugs.
Yeah.
Those involve people that's trying to make a profit off of vulnerable people,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion. I don't like that. I'm certain that citizens out here don't like that. And that's the target that we need to focus on.
Right.
If we can eliminate that person right there, whether it be locally or in the big circle of law enforcement, that's a huge goal right there.
Right.
To eliminate that dealer.
Okay. Yes, you are. Crimes targeting children and adults online is a growing problem. What are you able to do that is practical?
I'll give you a website. I wrote this down. I want to share that with you.
I love resources, so yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, let me find that note. I just wrote that down here this morning. We have a website out there that we just recently learned of. This is it right here. It's called takeitdown.ncmec.org. Takeitdown.ncmec.
NC? Yeah. Takeitdown.ncmec. MEC.org? Yeah.
Yes.
All right. I'm
Very
putting
good.
that as a note.
Very good tool. What that's about right there, what that website is about right there, and we've just started using this or making it available. It's for that parent who, let's say, they find that their kids on their Facebook there, on their phone, sending text messages and stuff, and sending pictures and stuff like that are inappropriate pictures. The parent can go to that website and actually stop those photographs from being sent from that phone. In addition to that, it can be a prevention thing as well. They can go on there and register that phone that belongs to their child and say, hey, if anybody tries to tap into this, hack into this, send something to that, send me an alert. Very helpful tool right there. That's just become available here not very long. Hadn't been out there that long. We learned about it. Chief Hodgkinson from my office passed that on to me. We had a couple of conversations with our investigators about that to alert them and let them know that this is a tool out here that you can use right here, even in the field of law enforcement, to help these people deal with this particular problem.
Right.
So that's a good way right there.
And with it being .org, implies it's an organization that doesn't charge.
Yeah,
correct?
there's no fee to it that we understand at all to register that, to utilize that system right there. So hopefully that'll be a big help to us.
Yeah, that I'm going to dig into that. That's really interesting to me.
Yeah, let me know your feedback.
I can tell you what we have done as my wife and I,
Mm-hmm.
with our kids. Now this is costs, but also costs to see your kids' lives get destroyed by things like this. So what we had done, we had downloaded an app called PACT, PACT,
Okay.
and then you download PACT Junior to your kids' phones, and then you hardwire your kids' iPhones to your computer, and then you put the software in using it. But what that allows you to do is I can control my kids' phone when I'm in California,
Mm-hmm.
and I can stop them from doing anything, and I mean anything, except for they can make phone calls and they might be able to take a photo. Other than that, I can restrict that phone down to that, and then I can limit it much more liberally with other things like can't do this website, can't do this app. You can't download without me sending you a code. But that's $10 a month, and you're allowed up to 21 devices doing that. Great service, and I can't speak highly enough about it. But something like this for someone who maybe can't afford that $10 a month, that's a great resource. It sounds like as well.
Well, it sounds to me like you've become an RA proactive parent,
Oh, very.
and that's a lot of the root problems to some of the problems we have out here with
Yeah.
some of these kids right there is a lack of being properly parented. Not a dictatorship, of course, but
Right.
you're looking out for the safety of your child right there, and who knows what danger lurks out there for them.
Oh, I can tell
Yeah,
you what
we-
day job. I've seen it. I've seen
You
it.
know, we get calls a lot of times and work on some of these crimes like that, or these the source of this information isn't even from this country.
Right.
You know, yeah. And when you start thinking about that and thinking of what happens in the world out here, you know, law enforcement has to be on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
We have to do what we can to find out what we can about those particular um, types of messages there. Phones are a big source of information for us.
And what you just said there is you want to do what you can as law enforcement, but you're also restricted because of those jurisdictions and
Oh,
boundaries when someone's in, Lord knows what country.
Yeah.
And they're sending and receiving. It isn't like the laws don't apply, but they're also not as easily enforceable.
So go to that website I gave you.
Oh, I will be.
Put that block on there.
Yeah. That's going to be on Crooksville News, no doubt.
And see how, but test that out and see how that works.
Yeah.
We've not went online and tested that ourselves, other than looked at the first, bit of the face of the page for it, the face cover.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds really interesting. I like that. Can you do something more about better coverage, especially during late night? I've had several issues where only one deputy was available, myself, on several occasions. But is this an isolated incident, or is this something you can do more about? Or is it just a matter of like, crimes are not as prevalent, so therefore you have a limited amount of deputies, or how do you see that?
It's a tough question.
It is.
And it's a very broad question. And I will tell you, from a national level down to a state level down to a county level, that recruiting has really become a major issue for law enforcement. It's a national epidemic, finding people that want to be a police officer and want to be deputies. It's not like it was when I started.
Yeah.
When I started, I'd have worked for a whole lot less than $4.20 an hour. I've just been happy to have a job in law enforcement. I mean, I was so, wanting to do that job, and it's not like that now. Recruitment has become a big issue for us. Now, I know those shifts you're talking about where there's one guy on duty or maybe two guys at the most there. And you have to look at what's happening in law enforcement and recruiting people. I will tell you this. Chief Hoskinson, that works for me, my chief deputy there, and a couple of the other guys have made significant efforts in recruiting people, and we're now at a higher level than we were back in 2021 with deputies.
Okay.
I have 23 sworn officers there at the sheriff's office today. I'm the 23rd one. In addition to that, of those 23 people, I have 3 of them that are assigned to work the 3 courts that I mentioned earlier, juvenile, municipal court, and common police court right here. Since that renovation started with the courthouse, the courts all moved to different locations, and everybody wanted a deputy there to be security at their door. And I get that. It's just that we couldn't control those 3 locations like we could the one, so I had to hire people for that. Our county commissioners bent over backwards to help us do that. They give me money to do that, to go hire these people, and we hired them full time. So whenever they get dismissed from their court duties, and some guys get done, you know, at 9 or 10, 11 o'clock, or in the afternoon, we put them out in the road, serve the papers for the court, that number 2 priority I told you, or that number 1 priority I told you about.
Right.
So we use them to do prison transport. We use them to transport prisoners. So I have them 3. Well, whenever they decided to move us out of the jail, the old building at 110, that left nobody there to watch the prisoners. So I had to hire people in that place too. I've got 6 people obligated to taking care of courthouse security and to do the jail, to be there present when there's inmates there. Now they're not there all day, but again, they're running people back and forth, taking them, walking them down to those courts if they have to, or making sure the probation officer gets help getting them out. So I've got a considerable amount of staff tied up doing that in the daytime. And that's why it looks like there's so many people on day shift. If you walk in that office up there anytime between 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, you're probably going to see 7 or 8 deputies running around. Think, my God, well, they all doing working day shift.
Right.
You know, they don't realize that they have other areas of responsibility as well. And haven't got there yet. I have 23 people right there. We've got a new schedule out right now that will have 2 and 3 officers on almost every day of the week throughout the 24-hour period right there, including those people there that are on those other duties right there. So I've got staff there now that a staff level now that's comparable to what we had a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And our commissioners again have been very helpful with that. They bought them 5 new cruisers that are coming here. We ought to be here by the end of the year, hopefully, to replace some of the others we've got. We've got newer people we've hired, and I feel pretty comfortable now with the level of service that we have out there. I can't tell you they're going to get to them within a minute or 2 like they can in some of these villages or cities or bigger places, but a reasonable amount of time it takes. And then again, if you call for somebody and they don't show up until the next morning, you better be calling and let me know.
Right.
And ask them what happened. 9 times out of 10, the answer's right there in black and white on the log. They got tied up on a priority call that they had to go to, or they were transporting somebody back and forth to jail. So I'm not using those as excuses, but those things do happen and delay that response time. So even if I had 4 or 5 guys out there to shift, there's still going to be some delays in calls. Our goal is to have a supervisor on each shift, which we have now, and have at least 2 deputies under that sergeant out there working on those shifts. So hopefully that will speed it up. Now, because I remember the day when I was a young deputy and I was out there getting paid $4.20 an hour, didn't care at all about the pay. I'd be the only one on duty.
Is that what you got started out as?
Yeah.
$4.25?
I was on that CETA program. They had a CETA federal program that was funded up there at the county. It was called CETA. I think it was $4.20 an hour.
You make me feel old when you say that, because I started my first job at like $5.75 an hour.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is.
Yeah.
We start guys out now up there, depending upon what experience they bring with them, but at least around $20-some an hour.
Yeah. That's pretty decent for around here. So
but we still run into that issue of guys being recruited to other agencies that pay more money yet.
Right.
We can't compete with some of these.
I've seen where the state has really amped up their advertising aggressively.
Yeah, they are in the same issue the Highway Patrol is that we are. In fact, the other morning on Fox News, I listened to 4-star General Randy George. He's the U.S. Chief of Staff for the military, right? And he talked in depth about the recruitment issues that the U.S. government's going through to recruit people to be soldiers. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't wait to get in the Army when I went. Yeah. Sign me up.
Yeah. I've had 2 kids of my own that were interested in joining. One, unfortunately, went through an injury that took a few years to get through, so he wasn't able to join. But my youngest, he's shown strong interest in being a police officer, but some interest in joining the Army as well. But as a parent, I'm like, I want to say, no, don't do it, because, you love your kids. But
I joined an Army.
But I never push my bias like that on my kids, because if they want to do something, who am I to say, oh, you shouldn't enjoy life, But yeah, but they're welcome to. In recent times, have you made changes to your department in regards to reducing or eliminating the drug task force? If so, why?
Well, I haven't eliminated the drug task force because we're still a member of it.
Mm-hmm.
We have been.
Okay, well, there's a misconception there because
I
I'm not
understand
aware.
that. Yeah,
Okay, is the drug task force, because I thought a drug task force was a portion of your department.
okay, that's
Okay.
correct. It was.
Oh, okay.
It was at one time. I stepped out of that program for a year,
Okay.
and my goal there was to consolidate. I had guys working property crimes investigations out here and guys working drugs out here, and I felt a need to bring them together and create what we call a special investigation unit. So I brought a couple of guys over there and then put them with the special investigation unit and continued driving down the lane of not being a member. Found out pretty quickly that that was not as cheap as I thought it was going to be because of the cost to process drugs in a crime lab at Licking County. It's quite expensive.
Huh.
It costs us $2,500 a year to be a member of Code. So a year later, I rejoined Code. That would have been in 2022, and I've been a paid member for the last couple of years back in there. I have guys. I've got more guys in that section now than I ever had.
Okay.
I've got a lieutenant in charge of that section, Lieutenant Adam Moon. He oversees the special investigative unit. Got guys in there assigned to drugs. It took me. I ended up buying a dog off of New Licks Police Department. Their handler left there and went to another agency, and we purchased their canine dog. And I had to get that dog certified and assigned to a deputy. Sergeant Palmer stepped up to the bat on that, took the dog in, took the dog to different training levels, and just recently got his state certification. So I'm back up. Now I have a canine unit that works with SIU. He's a member of Code. Then I've got a sergeant that he works with that's a member of Code, and 2 sergeants in there and a lieutenant in there and a chief deputy. I've got 4 or 5 people assigned to Code to work with the other agencies should we be requested. So
right.
I'm still a paying member of Code. Yes, I stepped out for a year. That was my decision to do that. We lost our canine dog back then. Dave Briggs went to another department and took his dog with him. He purchased it from the county when he left. So had to
Was that part of the decision?
Part of what?
Did that have
He had left before that.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm still a part of Code, still working the drugs with other agencies out here when requested to do so. We've attended their meetings and stuff that they have. So I hope I'm still on track there. In fact, even the year I stepped out, Sheriff Lutz from Muskingum County and Sheriff Thorpe from Licking County said, "Hey, if you need anything, just call us. We're there."
Okay.
So I still had that camaraderie connection with those other sheriffs that were still going to step up the plate and provide us with what we needed.
Okay.
So I'm back on track.
That's good to have. Yeah.
Well, it's just a good resource out there.
Yeah.
But I couldn't see funding and paying for guys just to do drugs.
Mm-hmm.
There's more going on in Prairie County than just drugs. When I got one guy over here working investigations, trying to get the help of a deputy maybe to help him, let's bring it together, create a team, and drive on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we did. Probably hurt some people's feelings, but that's just the cost of doing business. And it was a legitimate business reason for doing that.
Right.
So.
Okay. All right. Bob Shones claimed or alluded to many sexual assault reports not being investigated or not being investigated enough. What is the state of these investigations, or is this claim accurate?
Well, I don't know what Bob's talking about, to tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
We have several cases that have never been closed out. Several cases that are still open investigations. Unless he has some particular cases he's talking about, maybe it's ones he was once assigned to that are still open and pending, because he had a few of those.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what information he would be alluding to there, because if there was information that would cause for a prosecution, I'm certain we would have done that. So if there's some out there, what might be the reasons for that? A lack of evidence, an unparticipating victim, a victim who doesn't, have the mental stability to sit up there on the jury, up on the seat there in a jury trial and testify. No physical evidence to indicate that, no hospital reports, no interviews of a suspect. There could be a multitude of reasons why.
Right.
So if there's a particular case, one in particular that, Rocky Chevalier has called in right there. Why isn't anything? I can go look at that.
Mm-hmm.
But to throw out a broad statement like that and say there's all these cases out there like that, I don't agree with that.
Okay. Bob Schoen said in when I talked to him, the inordinate, and I got this in quotes, the inordinate amount of sexual child abuse cases in this county is alarming. Again, I know this is a bit of a broad statement, right? But I'll continue. I'm not blaming or taking sides. I understand this is a subjective view of one person. What can you tell the public that they may have heard that? What can you tell the public that may have heard this said?
Well, I don't know how it'll change their minds if he's telling people that. Do you?
Right.
I think
Yeah. It's one person saying something.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I think a fairer question to me, and leaving Bob Schoen's out, this is what are you doing, Sheriff, to combat this problem?
Right.
We've sent our guys to as many training classes as we can regarding these type of topics. We use every resource available out there. We work with the investigators from Children's Services, the investigators from the prosecutor's office, the court probation officers. We have a partnership with the Harcum House over in Lancaster that we use to interview these victims to see if they're going to qualify to go to court and testify.
Mm-hmm.
There's a process for that. And, the stability of that victim oftentimes is a big reason why no charges are ever filed. They might be the only witness to that crime.
Mm-hmm.
Suspects saying, hey, I'm not telling nobody nothing.
Right.
I'm pleading the Fifth Amendment here.
Yeah.
Right against self-incrimination. I'm not going to talk. So anyway, I don't know that I would put any validity to that statement made by him unless I knew the particular cases that he was referring to, and then I could go back and check and see what has or has not been done. Let's just hope some are his cases when he worked for me.
Yeah.
So,
all right. So you're basically saying, you can't give specific answers without specific details to a situation, right?
yeah, I think that's fair to the public.
That's fair.
But I outlined some of the things that we have and are doing right there to help with that investigation. The smarter people I have, the better off I am as sheriff. They make my job look easy. When I got smart people working for me, I can go out there and do the job, can document what the prosecutor needs. I can't ask for more of my guys than that.
Right. All right. Bob Schoen has claimed that there are over 50 open sexual abuse cases regarding adults and children from 2019 to sometime recently. What are the challenges the Sheriff's Department is facing to resolve this issue? I think you somewhat already answered that, and that's cooperation with the public and the situation, the individual situations on who can or can't or may not be capable of testifying, or like you said, if you're the only witness to the crime or whatnot, that kind of thing. You're welcome to respond if you want to, but
I don't have any. I don't know the numbers he's referring to unless they were cases he had to respond to that question.
right. Yeah. I think the next one's going to be largely the same thing. Because I have it here, I'll just read it, and it's largely a repetition. But from 2014 to July 2023, Bob says that there are 477 substantiated child abuse cases in this county. Is there something that the public can do to help in this matter? If not, what is the Sheriff's Department's difficulties in getting justice? I think we've answered all those questions already, but you're welcome to respond.
We have, but that number there, I don't know where he got that. I will assume, and we know what that means, but it sounds like a figure there probably from probably from Children's Services.
Okay.
That's where most of these crimes get reported to. A lot of times they come to us, either from Children's Hospital. Guys were talking about one there this morning, looking for the report that came in. So those numbers right there, doesn't sound like anything out of our current CAD sheet right there, or out of our computer-aided dispatch center right there. It sounds like that's a bigger number from another agency, which would be Children's Services. That encompasses all police departments within the county.
Oh, okay.
So I'd asked, if this is about Bob Schoen's, I'd ask Bob to qualify that number right there, where that came from, to see. And if there are specific ones from what year to what year?
Is that 2014 to 2023 July.
That's a lot of cases reported to
9
the
years.
sheriff's office. Yeah, and I don't know where that number comes from.
Yeah,
couldn't tell you.
Okay. Talk about funding issues and how this has affected housing felons and others in regards to jail availability space. I know you have had challenges in temporarily keeping some people in the local jail, either for temporary or for holding those for court. Can you explain this, or is this no longer the problem or an issue?
Well, housing prisoners is always an issue.
Mm-hmm.
We spend millions of dollars. Our per diem rates are right around $75 a day down there to house somebody.
No,
Well,
can you explain that? What does that mean?
what?
Per diem rates?
That's the daily rate to house an inmate to put him in jail for 24 hours. It
Oh,
costs us
okay.
$75. So, depending upon the population in the jail, if it gets to capacity, which is right around 200 right now, and the jail tells us, no, we have no jail space down here. Typically, I get a call. I call the warden and say, hey, look, we got this guy we'd like to get locked up. And our warden is very, very good about shuffling people around or moving people around so they can find a place. But when that's not available, and that has happened, we have no bed space. We've reached out to neighboring counties. I've contracted now with Monroe County for a number of years. I've contracted with Stark County for a number of years, Belmont County. I think we got Belmont. But anyway, we've got probably 4 or 5 other jail contracts. Zanesville City Jail, we take prisoners in there, Muskingum County, Licking County. So every jail runs into that problem of housing.
Mm-hmm.
The bigger counties that have bigger jails than ours are more accommodating, but their per diem rates are a little bit different. Fairfield is, I think, like $95 or $100 a day to put somebody in jail over there. And, the commissioners are, kind of frowning whenever we're paying that kind of money down there. Over there, when our jail is $75 a day. So there again, we try to move people around. But I think we've done a good job with our neighboring counties and developed contracts out here to house prisoners in other counties. The problem with that is I got to take a deputy now, run that inmate all the way there. Probably got to have him back in the morning for some type of a hearing.
Yeah.
Judge Wilson has been a tremendous, tremendous help for our office up there with the video arraignment program that he set up years ago. And that first initial hearing can be done on video arraignment from the jail that we have to his courtroom. So that eliminates that cost right there. Judge Boyer had me in her chambers. It's probably either early this year or last year it was, to set up a program where there's an inmate in a state prison that needs to be in front of the judge for some type of a hearing, whatever it might be. She's allowed us to take a laptop, go to that prison, get that inmate outside, set him in our cruiser, and do a feed off of our laptop there, and back to her court right there, and then we take the inmate back into the prison, if that's the process that we're going to do at that time,
Right.
if that's available. So both those courts have pretty well bent over backwards as far as technology and helping the sheriff's office in eliminating some of that cost and some of that time to transport prisoners back and forth. Juvenile facilities in Lancaster, I don't know that we do anything like that with them. Juveniles, a little bit different story because I have parents there, and so we still run them back and forth there. So, but for the most part, I think we've handled that issue fairly well with our inmates. It could be better.
Mm-hmm. I can tell you where that question came from, and I could be wrong, but I believe I read that from, and I assume this is your Facebook page, the re-elect, Sheriff William R. Barker. And I think I had something, I believe it talked about the local jail where you go temporarily house, I don't know if you call them inmates, but people waiting for court or whatever it was. And that may have been a few years back. Does that sound familiar, or do I have that wrong?
Actually, you're right on target, but it wasn't that long ago. We have there in the old building at 110 West Brown Street, in the old jailhouse right there, an area designated as the temporary holding facility. Now, what happens in the morning is we'll make a jail run down to Nelsonville or wherever we have to go, and we bring the inmate back and hold them there.
Oh, okay.
In that old jailhouse. That's where those 3 guys I told you that were hired to sit there with the inmates and take care of them. I had to have direct supervision over them while they're there.
Right.
We'll bring them back and set them in the first floor of the jail or set them in chairs there, and then I got a deputy that sits there and watches them. What you're probably alluding to there is that we started, this is 2023, probably a year or better, before this renovation started at the courthouse, we were going to take part of the building across the street where we're currently at and convert that into a newer temporary holding facility.
Okay.
We involved the Bureau of Adult Detention. We involved some architects in there and started the paperwork process and drafting up the floor plans for that facility to become a temporary holding facility. They're at 121
Right.
West Brown, which is across the street. So the sheriff's office, the 911 center was going to be connected right to the temporary holding facility. The courthouse was going to be right there. But when the commissioner said, time out, Sheriff, hold on, we're not going to be able to do that right now. That was a joint decision. We're not going to be able to do that because the courts in the courthouse had to find other locations during the renovation. They couldn't be in there when they were having that renovation. So all three of those courts packed up their boxes and stuff and they moved to different locations. Judge Wilson took up that part, was going to be the temporary holding facility. Judge Boyer, she went down to the commissioner's building and took up space downstairs and upstairs, along with other county offices. And the juvenile people went into a building there right on North Main Street. That I think it might be one of Teresa Snyder's buildings. Don't hold me to that, but I think that's one that she owned.
Okay.
Through her agency right there, that Judge Cooper converted into her courtroom. So when that happened, and that might have been a year or so ago when you heard that, that's what stopped that process.
Mm-hmm.
That's on hold right now.
Okay.
So we're still using the old building.
All right.
Hoping we'll someday have a new place.
Hopefully.
Well, we need to be compliant with standards, and that's the whole issue right there.
Right.
Yeah.
When you say new place, what do you mean by that?
Well, how can I describe 110 West Brown? It was built in 1892 or something like that.
Yeah.
Sometime, maybe 1998.
Are you referring to like it being torn down and build something in its footprint, or what are you referring to?
Well, it doesn't meet the jail standards.
Oh, okay.
When I had a full service jail there, which was in my first term, we were never able to meet the standards.
No.
And it was pretty clear in black and white. Every time those inspectors would come around, I'd get gigged for several different things. There wasn't enough space in there, wasn't no exercise facility in there, wasn't no daily sick leave plan, wasn't no doctor to come in and checked on them, wasn't no nurse to come and checked on them.
Right.
You know, we tried there with Dr. Herrendine's office to work that out. I went and got a stationary pedal bicycle to alleviate a lawsuit once, and that worked. So we just didn't meet the standards. So what the state of Ohio did then was decided through the Bureau of Adult Detention is let's give Perry County some money, Hocking County some money, Morgan County and Athens some money. Let's build them a brand new jail.
Yeah.
So they built the Southeastern Ohio Regional Jail. But in order to operate it, you have to commit each county to your operational budget for your jail to run that jail facility.
Okay.
When I first went in office, my budget was like $682,000
Yeah.
to run a 24-hour day, 7-day a week office. It's now, my 2023 budget's over $2 million.
Mm-hmm.
And we're asking for, 2.some billion this year to run 2024 again.
Mm-hmm.
So to answer that question, that jail is old.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a set of wooden stairs in it that runs from the basement level all the way up to the kitchen and all the way from the kitchen to the third floor.
I was unaware it had a basement.
What's that?
I was unaware about it had a basement.
Oh, it's got a basement and a dungeon where they used to house prisoners, and a dungeon down there. There used to be a tunnel that went under the
Now, again, my ignorance is showing, but
yeah.
What is a dungeon? So I can really think of like bad thoughts. So, you know what I mean?
You can get down
Sheriff, what are you into?
You can get down in that dungeon and see where these pigs used to go in there, where these big eyelet rings were like that, where they handcuffed people up there. Yeah.
Wow.
But they're gone. But I just know that's what was there, because at one time there was a tunnel that linked that building at 110, the old jail, to the courthouse.
Oh, okay.
That's why when I called the historical society up in Columbus and asked about getting that off of the registry, because it's registered as a historical site.
Right.
They told me that, well, that's the connection. Is that tunnel still there? Well, it is. It's plugged up, but it's got a pipe that runs through there where the heating system runs through there.
Oh, okay.
It's not used, but it's still connected to the building. I said, yes, not coming off the registry. So that created a problem there. Do we want to see it tore down? It's seen its better days. The actual jail cells themselves lack water. The water's turned off back there. it's no space in there. So I think the plan for the county commissioners is to they have a grant to come in there and paint over some of this old lead paint and stuff that's in there. I mean, we've all been exposed to this place for years now in there, and to eliminate what asbestos they find in there. I've heard them talk about painting that inside of that facility, and then moving some of the archive records into that old jail and storing them there. Right now, they're stored out on 345 in a gymnasium.
Oh, okay.
Where they're stored now. So, do I want to see it tore down? You know, it's nice to talk about that to the grand jury. When they come around and do their tour, that, you know, the first guy ever housed there, his name was Julius Clay. Back in the day when they booked him in 1896 or 98, they wouldn't write in there whether they were a black male or a white male. It was colored. And they entered that in there, and then they would write in the jail registry the origin of the country that person was from. You know, at that time, back in the 1890s, think about that. People were, you know, migrating here to this country. We'd ended the Civil War by then and everything, so you got people walking around from all over the freaking world here in the United States.
Yeah.
So they wrote down the origin. I found in the basement of that building that original registry laid down on the floor in an old deteriorated place with 2 or 3 on top of it. And I was able to salvage those and put them in the archives. So you can go back to the historical section of the sheriff's office and find the original jail registry from the first person booked in, Julius Clay, up to the point where we closed the jail down. Now, I'll tell you how outdated that deed is right there. We took pictures on a 3.5 floppy disk, and now getting somebody can open them up might be a trick. And stuck that in that jail book and drew a line across there and signed off.
Wow.
In history. That was the last inmate housed in there.
Julius Clay.
Julius Clay was his name.
I feel like I've heard that name, but I'm sure I haven't.
No,
but it just feels like I've heard that name. Yeah, odd. All right. Questions for the public? Anything you want to ask the public to think, consider?
I'd like for them to consider re-electing me. Like I said earlier, I'm running for my 9th term in office. I just have some basic information about my campaign this time I'd like to share with you.
Sure.
You know, the first thing I had listed on there was, well, I think it's very important that we have an open door policy. I think transparency is one of the biggest concerns that I have for the day-to-day operation of that office right there. Because I feel when Rocky Chevalier or any person walks in and has a question about what's happened with their complaint, I owe them an answer. I don't want them to have to come back. I'd like to be able to answer it right then, but a lot of times I can't. I have to go back and research that. I have to go back and try to find the answer to that particular question. So I think that's probably one of my biggest issues right there is doing that. The second one that I had listed down there was the educational levels of the deputies. I mean, we strive hard. We actually earn money every year through the state of Ohio for participating in what's called the CPT program, where we continuing professional training, and we have to take so many hours each year, and we submit this report in the state. Well, we get money back from that if we complete that. We put that into a fund that allows me to send you off to a training to educate you. So we're always looking for avenues to enhance the professionalism of the sheriff's office, to make us better police officers out there, to be able to handle the people's complaints and do whatever is necessary. We've done drug investigation classes, child abuse investigation classes, homicide investigations, and whatever the guys might want to work on, patrol tactics and things like that. A third thing is it's important for me as an office holder to maintain a good relationship with all the office holders, in particular the judges, and in particular the commissioners. The judges hear cases, the judges direct us, the commissioners fund my office. I want to be as open as I can about the needs of my office, and I feel I have a very good rapport with those county commissioners right now, and feel that, you know, they listen to me. I think one of the most important things to me as an individual and as sheriff is having credibility, and having credibility with the people that I'm talking to, the people that I have to address, the people that I need to answer their specific questions or ask for funding from them to help. So I think it's important to have credibility and have that good relationship with those county commissioners. The fourth thing on my list is recruitment. The fourth thing on my list is recruitment. there's nothing I'd like more than to have more deputies than I knew what to do with. At one time, I had 32.
Oh wow.
At one time, I had two different grants going at the same time, and had hired them under the Bill Clinton presidency.
Okay.
He started a program called Cops Hire. I think it was Cops, and funding came down from the federal government to hire deputy sheriffs and put them out in the street. And the big problem with that at the end of the day, when that grant ran out, was we had to agree to hire those people for a year after their expiration of the grant. Well, that lasted for about the first year, but after that, then that's when I hit the time in my career that I had to lay people off right there. And some of those guys never were able to come back. A couple of them were able to come back. So that's why it's important to me to have that relationship with the commissioners to try to meet that recruitment requirements. And we don't have a minimum standard that we have to live up to. We don't have a minimum. How many deputies do you have to patrol a county of 36,000 plus? But there's no standard out there that says that.
Right.
If there was, and we went by the FBI statistics, it'd be like a deputy to every 1 or 5,000 people. And my gosh,
Yeah.
It would be unrealistic to think that our county could fund that. But I have nothing but praises for what our county commissioners have done for my office there. Like I said, we've purchased new vehicles, not only this time, but before. We've hired people. They've told me, if you find somebody you want to hire, rather than us put funding in there at the beginning of the year, whenever you hire him, come and ask us, and we'll fund that to the end of the next year. So
that makes it nice.
Well, it does, in that they don't have to appropriate enough money up front to cover my dreams.
Yeah.
Okay, which
right.
basically is what that is. But if I find this guy and want to hire him and put him on, and we've vetted him and make sure he's somebody we want, okay, well, how much does it take you to get through the last 22 pay periods of this year? So they've been very helpful with that. So that's what I would tell the people.
Okay.
If I was standing in front of them being quizzed about my campaign for the office of sheriff.
Questions for me?
No, you never asked me about my military experience. You never asked me about what I did before I was sheriff. You never asked me about what I did when I was a teenager growing up, or about me going to college or anything like that at all. Why not? I read that in your questions.
I did, but that's because I didn't know if we had more time before we went into your history. But that's up to you.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
You sure? Really? Okay.
We don't have to be long about it.
But yeah, I just find your history. I was surprised because the only place I could find any of that is from your Facebook re-elect William R. Barker page.
I'm originally from here in Crooksville. This is my hometown. I grew up here on behind the Big Apple. There used to be a house up there on top of the hill. In fact, I grew up right beside Paul Pride's house. Didn't know that. He's a colonel of the Highway Patrol. He's from up there too. We lived up behind the Big Apple. That's just when I was a little guy when Mom brought me home. But I remember growing up here on the North Street, up here in the neighborhood up here. Grew up right across from Chris Weiss and them boys there, and Spencer kids there, and Schillings. All of us grew up in that neighborhood right there. We moved down here to McKeever Street. Grew up down here on the McKeever, corner of McKeever, and what is that? It's not Buckeye that comes across there, is it? Right down on the corner. Anyway, it's right there on McKeever Street.
I forget, Buckeye's the center road, right?
Is it the center one?
I think so.
Anyway. You
got China, Buckeye, then I'm drawing a blank. I've been living up 20-some years.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I grew up right there.
Okay.
And went to school there at the old North School, which is now a senior citizen type complex.
Yeah.
I went to school there. We moved out of there over to Philo. Went to Philo school for probably 5-6 years. Ended up down in Noble County 1 year. Ended up moving back up here to out here off Maysville Pike. And I ended up graduating from Maysville School. Now, why so many moves? What wasn't my idea? It was Mom and Dad's.
Yeah.
Dad had to go where the work was. So we went there and graduated from Maysville. I ended up going to Muskingum Technical College. Got a 2-year degree in law enforcement there. During that time, I was in high school. In the 9th grade, we had a career day. And I remember the deputy sheriff that came in and talked to us was Ted Holscher. And he must have been 8'10" because he was a huge, huge man. He was tall.
Wow.
And when a highway patrolman came in and talked to us, and I knew right then what I wanted to do. That's the avenue I wanted to go. From there on, I worked my butt off to do anything I could to train or educate myself for a job in law enforcement. I saved up enough money to put myself through college for a year and a half. I worked in Mattingly Food over there in the freezers for the first year of that school. worked out in Dura there in South Zanesville, working at a steel mill down there, saving up my money. So I worked pretty hard to put myself through school. The last quarter of my 2-year degree was the only quarter I got any help for funding, and there was a grant that came available then to fund that. From there, I graduated, had my good old diploma there and everything, but during that time period is when I went through the Ohio Peace Officer Basic Academy, because I had a job then up here at the Good Samaritan Hospital as a security guard. Sheriff Jack Pennybaker gave me my first commission in 1973 in Muskingum County.
Okay.
That's my footprint of starting law enforcement.
Hmm.
It was right there in 1973. Went through the Ohio Peace Officer Training Academy, got out of there, and I went in the Army, couldn't find a job. I signed up to be an MP. I scored high enough on my testing to qualify to be a military policeman. I went through basic training at Fort Knox, Kentucky, down to Fort Gordon, Georgia. Came home for a short period, got in a plane, and flew to Hawaii. That's where my order sent me, to work in a place called Fort Shafter, Hawaii. From there, I went down to Fort DeRussy, Hawaii, and I worked there for 2 years and 8 months as a military policeman.
Hmm.
So when I got out of there, my plan was, let's reach out and see who's hired. First place I sent one to was Perry County Sheriff's Office. First place that called me for a job interview was Perry County Sheriff's Office.
Wow.
First job I accepted back home was Perry County Sheriff's Office.
Huh.
I started there in 78, May it was. Worked there for 3 years or better. Got into investigations at one point, and by that time I had a wife and I had a little daughter on the way. I had a little daughter, and insurance became an issue. Money became an issue. So I transferred over to the city police, took a cut in pay to go to New Lex, but I still brought more money home because of the benefit they provided. So, long story short, you read my bio. I spent a year or so there as a patrolman. I got promoted to police chief in 1982. That was probably my first taste, really, at managing people, learning what it took to make a police agency work, to be responsible for them. And at the same time I was in the military, I had, at that time, had been promoted to an E5 sergeant position in the National Guard, because I come off active duty and went in the National Guard, straight in that unit at New Lex. And at that point, I had got promoted to a staff sergeant, E6, and then I had another responsibility supervising my crews. So anyway, I've spent probably from 1982, I'm guessing, probably supervising either soldiers or police officers throughout my entire career, for up to 2013 when I retired from the Army National Guard. So I had at one time 3 jobs. I worked pretty regular. I was a teacher at Zane State College in there in the police academy, and I was a soldier with the Ohio Army National Guard, and I was either the police chief or the sheriff. I worked 3 jobs from probably 1982 to 2009 when I retired from teaching. So law enforcement's all I know. That's all I know. I focused my education, my training, all in trying to be the best sheriff I can be for Perry County. My goal is to serve this county as long as they'll have me as county sheriff.
You summed through that pretty quickly. I appreciate that. A few things I was curious about is, do you have siblings?
Yeah.
Are you the oldest?
I have a brother. Russell Glenn.
Who's the oldest?
I'm the oldest.
Okay.
He's younger than I am. He lives in California. When he went in the Air Force, he got stationed out in California and met his wife out there, and they got married out there. They have 4 kids.
Okay.
I have 2 children, a son and a daughter, and I have 3 grandsons, from 24 down to 13 and 10.
Oh.
And those 2 are in Florida, the youngest.
Oh, okay. Here's one I would find interesting. Who was William Barker as a teenager in high school? Sports, hobbies. Who was you?
I was the guy that probably kept his mouth shut about things. And I wasn't too vocal or anything like that. I played football my senior year of high school there.
Only your senior year?
Only my senior year. Yeah.
Seems like an odd move at the senior year. What's wrong with you?
I played the band before that, you know.
Oh, did you?
Okay. And I decided I had enough of that. That was like I forced onto that deal. But anyway, I told Mom and Dad, so I'm going to play football this year. I tried that earlier in my life when I was at school down in Philo and played junior high football down there. We had to walk home every night, carry my stuff, and that got old. But I did it, and then I thought, well, I want to try that my senior year of school. But I probably spent more time then and running around with a couple of guys. I just got into deer hunting, and I just thoroughly loved that. I loved the deer hunt. In fact, I was out last night sitting in my stand. I like the turkey hunt. I got a 0-turn lawnmower that I dearly love. I tore it up here last week, so it's still in the shop.
Oh.
Anyway, I like to cut my grass, take care of my property out there, and then I've got a 20-year-old motorcycle I like to get on every now and then and ride. So, But in high school, now I had an old 1950 Ford, if you can imagine what that looked like, that my dad brought me out of West Virginia. I did the body repair on that, restored that. Dad took the engine out. We sent it off, got it rebuilt. That was the car I plunked around in high school with. Everybody wanted to know what that had in it. And I told them it had a flathead V8 in it.
Oh, Lord.
And they didn't know what that was. So I had to pop the hood and show them. You know what a flathead V8 doesn't have?
No.
Doesn't have overhead valves.
That's right.
The valves
I
are
should
all
have known
down
that.
inside
Yes.
the block.
Yes.
A Chevalier would have known that.
Yeah. I'm failing on my Chevalier hood.
That's right. But high school now, I was pretty calm, laid back. I only got in a couple fights there, and that was it.
What instrument did you play in band?
Trombone. I was a trombone fan. Yeah.
Huh. How long were you in band for?
Not many people know that, so if you can edit that
out. How long were you in band for?
Oh, I don't know. High school, probably. I had 3 or 4 years in there, probably.
Huh.
Yeah, that's right. About 3 years. Yeah.
I think you covered everything in a very short period of time, which is awesome. Because I don't feel right like saying, "Hey, tell me about your history." It's such a vague, like, where do I start at? You know what I mean? So that's why I listed 1,000 questions just to get into your history.
Yeah. My parents were from down here. My mom grew up in this area here. She was a Robinson, and there's still some of those family members still living out here. But my dad, he grew up over back of Cannellville up on Virginia Ridge Road. When I went to high school, when I was in grade school. The reason we moved from here and went over there, my dad's father was ill with silicosis. Grandpa Cleo Barker. We bought a farm. Dad did right next door to their property. Had joined us, a little 55-acre farm, and we moved over there. In an old house, it had a log foundation on it, and we built up on top, and we had like 4 rooms in it. We never had running water in there for years.
Yeah,
we never did have running hot water in there for years. So it was kind of a country style living. You know, we took care of a garden as much as we could, raised a few pigs over there and some chickens. But I really enjoyed that country life, living, growing up there. And I credit my parents for instilling in me those values there. Of, you know, we didn't have a lot. We didn't have a lot of food sometimes. So we got by. You know, Dad did the best he could, driving, hauling coal, cutting logs, cutting timber and stuff. Mom, she worked too, and they raised me and my brother up with not having a lot in our family. But things got better for my younger brother. My brother, whenever he got a little older and I had moved on and was going to the Army, he was able to go to college. He was the first one to get a 4-year degree in our family. I've never not gotten that yet.
Yeah, but, you say that like you're still going to.
Well, I talked to my wife the other day about that.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I told her, I said, I think I'd like to go back to school again. And she goes, well, what would you be interested in doing? And I said, well, probably something, in the public safety sector here. Something, kind of what I'm doing. She goes, no. If you go back to school, you're going to learn how to cook. So, that should tell you who does the cooking in my family. My wife's my inspiration. She pushes me. She takes care of a developmentally disabled child here in Crooksville in home care. But back on my parents, they're both deceased. They're both gone now. Lost Mom this spring. In April. But
when did your dad pass? Dad
passed away in 2011. It was. Yeah, he's been gone now. Oh, wow. 12, 13 years probably. They were both married up here at Rose Farm up here.
Huh. One of the things you didn't talk about was I was interested in if I could find the daggone thing. There, is that it? National Guard.
Yeah.
You were a member from '79 to 2013. I had no idea. What did you do for the Guard?
Well, several different things.
Mhm.
Several different things there. I started out, like I said earlier, there in New Lexington, and I started out as a crewman on the M42 Duster, which is an old tracked vehicle with two pom-pom guns, for lack of better words. If you watch any of those old World War II movies or Pearl Harbor, where you see them battleships and them guns going back and forth.
Okay.
Well, those guns were mounted on a track vehicle, and they used them in Vietnam. They were used in Korean War. So they were 1942 models, I think they were, the ones we were on. They weighed 25 tons, and they'd fire about 240 rounds a minute, and they'd only ford about 24 inches of water. So you had to just about know what you're doing there. So I had some good squad leaders, but I was able to get promoted to a gunner on that crew, and then eventually became a squad leader in that crew. They did away with those guns right at the invasion into Kuwait, when the first soldiers went over to run Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait and back to where he belonged in Iraq or Iran. Iraq, I guess it was. Yeah. Anyway, wherever they ran him out to, they did away with that unit here, and we weren't able to go. They sent those guns over to the Saudis, and they used them over there. We were transitioning then. We transitioned to the Hawk missile system. So then I had to get reclassified in my job duties as an air defense crew member on an M42 Duster to a Hawk. And I chose to go into one division of that called Stinger missiles, which is a shoulder-fired missile that you launch from the ground and shoot aircraft out of the air. And I became trained in one of those. There's things about that of course, are secret that I can't share with you. But anyway, the basic duties we had there was to knock aircraft down.
Mm-hmm.
From there, I got moved over to becoming a Hawk uprange crew member, which put me in the supervision role again in the military, like I told you. And I had millions of dollars worth of equipment there that I was responsible for, and probably 20 to 25 soldiers in that uprange Hawk missile system that ran generators, that run radars, that ran a PCP, and other equipments that it took to make this missile launch in the air to knock down an aircraft. I spent probably 16 or 17 years there at that rank E6. I applied once for an E7 job, and they chose someone other than me. And I was down at the county fair one day, and Colonel Young, who later became a General Young, come up and asked me what I was going to do with my career. He said, "Would you be interested in teaching?" I said, "Teaching?" He goes, "Yeah." He said, "I'm a commander of a unit up in Columbus, and we'd like to take you up there and have you teach soldiers, different skill level, different classes."
Mm-hmm.
So I said, I'd kind of like to do that. It wasn't a couple of weeks later, I had orders transfer me from the Connellsville unit up to that unit up there in Columbus. It was the 145th Regiment of the RTI, which is a regional training institute. I spent probably a year, maybe 2 years there, teaching different classes, instructor training classes or small group leader classes, classes that were teaching soldiers basic skills to promote them to become instructors in different MOSs. That's military occupational specialty, MOS. Okay. So I trained those guys to do that. I ran those courses. Then I got a job. Then I got promoted. I got promoted to E7, staff or sergeant first class. Then that sergeant major put me in charge of managing those schools. Oh my, here we go again, back in this management field. That was probably the first really, really good start that I had where I was now being held accountable. And not that I hadn't before, but that job was a lot different because now I'm responsible for taking care of the soldiers' basic needs. Their housing, their food, and everything like that. Their classroom, their instructors, their student records, and instructor records, and it was pretty time consuming. I spent a lot of time working there with the guards. I'd go up a lot of times on Thursday or Friday, and then spend Saturday or Sunday there. And they thought nothing of tell them, give me orders and ship me out to Fort Bliss, Texas, or San Antonio, Texas, or up into Michigan, or up into Wisconsin. So that was a challenge. Then I got promoted again. I got promoted to E8. They made me a master sergeant. And this time, I did such a great job back there that they put me over combat arms section.
Huh.
Well, by that time, now things had kicked up over in the Mideast there. The war had kicked off pretty good over there. And suddenly there was a change in theater over there with some of the occupational skills that some of the soldiers over there had. Like, we trained field artillery guys there at the academy. They still use field artillery. We trained MPs. People had to transition from one job to another to become MPs. We had to do engineer courses. I then got the duties then of working directly under a sergeant major then to manage and operate these schools. So my job there during the time period through the war when I was still in there was to train the guys and get them ready to ship over there.
Right.
Some of them didn't come back. Some of them got injured over there. Some of them I became pretty good friends with. So anyway, long story short, my first sergeant that was there, he was going on another deployment. He had signed up to go back over again. Well, guess who they grabbed to backfill him? So I spent, I don't know, probably close to 2 years just backfilling him. And finally, I got promoted to first sergeant, which meant I got my diamond and was officially promoted to the rank of first sergeant with that unit. Then I was really in charge.
Yeah.
Really responsible for everybody in that unit up there. So
was that overwhelming at all, or
no, it's challenging.
it's challenging?
It's a challenge. It's all a challenge to me. It's
Yeah.
not overwhelming. No, I want to learn this job. I'd been doing it for the first couple of years, but
Yeah.
officially being put in that position where then they're going to come to you and look for the answers.
Right.
And I had a great time there, simply because I had great leadership. I had great guys to work with. We got the cream of the crop at that unit up there because we picked people that we knew were good soldiers, that were going to be good instructors, and we wouldn't have it any other way.
Right.
And the reason I say that is because during the time period I was there, several times we achieved what's called an accreditation of excellence in our schools that we run, which meant that the proponent school, let's just say MPs, for example, they're out of Fort, I can't think of the name of it. It'll come to me here in a minute. It's out west there. Anyway, that proponent that owns that mission in the military, that's called a proponent school. They come and they do an audit on your class. They come and sit in your classroom and watch your instructors. They come and watch how your records are being maintained. And when I became responsible for that right there, that's when I learned to cross T's, dot I's, check everything 2 or 3 times. My guys get so mad at me and I hand them back something. Say, this isn't right here. Review this. So I had a great leadership there that worked really hard with me to help me through that process. Same when I became first sergeant. I had a company commander there right there with me all the time. I wasn't her boss or his boss.
Right.
But still, we worked together as a team there. And it's all a matter of teamwork. That's why it's important to me at my office. I have a great staff up there. I have guys that do a very good job with what we have. They try hard. They're not afraid to ask me questions. They're not afraid to answer questions. I can't compliment my support staff. I've got a great administrative clerk there. Michaela's been with me for years. I got a great civil staff. Sandy, she's been there, manages all the property sales and forfeitures and stuff and transport stuff for the sheriff's office. Got Al Dunn that does our CCW permits, Amanda Dannison that does our civil record stuff there, Dana Wilson that manages my evidence rooms. I got a good staff there. That office probably is running better now than I've ever seen that, just looking at it from my eyes. And of course, I'm probably prejudiced, but I think we have a good representation there for Perry County, and the citizens out here need to be proud of that. And like I've said earlier, if they have questions about cases, they need to call me. My phone number is 740-252-7999. It's right here. I carry that phone all the time with me. The county pays for that. I get phone calls on that all the time. That's the best way to contact me. My home number, no, it wakes my wife up. She
She'll
so
show up at your house and you put your handcuffs.
and one more time, I actually took an ad out once publicizing that phone number, making it available for the public to reach me.
Yeah.
So again, it's 740-252-7999, and call me anytime.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you sitting with me. You've answered all my questions, and you've zipped through all the things that would have extended this thing for another hour. I'm sure of it, so I appreciate that. So if I have any further questions, I'll be in contact with you.
You got my number.
Hey, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.